Critiquing Comics is back, and this time Jason and I are discussing the first 2 issues of Immortalis, written by Sean Lewis. But wait, didn't we talk about that before? That was issue 3, and why did issue 3 come out first? Was that a good idea, or was it indicative of a problem with the story? We'll talk about that and more after this.
Sawate. My name is Stella, and I am the host of Batgirl to Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. Batgirl to Oracle is a podcast dedicated to Barbara Gordon, the first woman to hold the mantle of Batgirl for an extended period of time, roughly 1967 to 1988. The goal of Batgirl to Oracle is to examine the character's history from her first appearance as Batgirl and continuing through her tenure as Oracle. Each episode looks at a vintage issue of Detective Comics or Batman, as well as other books like Justice League and Freedom Fighters, and modern issues of Batgirl and Birds of Prey. I also keep track of news involving Batgirl and other members of the Bat family, and I have a revolving series of segments like Babs in the Tube, which highlights appearances of Babs in TV and film, Shipper Spotlight, which looks at a variety of comic and pop culture couples, gives their history, and determines whether they are hot or not, Reading with Stella, which could be described as an audio drama, or just me reading a book that relates to Babs or doesn't, and of course, the mainstay literature recommendation. I have been blessed to interview writers Scott Beatty and Chuck Dixon on their Batgirl Year 1 work, Brian Q. Miller on his Batgirl run, Dwayne Swarzynski and Christy Marks on their separate Birds of Prey work, and the creators and actors of the Batgirl Spoiled, the web series. I hope to interview more creators and actors in the future. My goal, most importantly, is to make a fun, entertaining, and thoughtful show that people enjoy and from which they learn. Find the show online at thebatmanuniverse.net and iTunes, and follow the show on Facebook and Twitter at Batgirl to Oracle. Thank you, and fly on, Babs lovers.
This is Tim.
This is Jason.
And this is Critiquing Comics.
Where are we, Tim? Where are we?
It's Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Jason in Portland, where he's gone to the dogs, apparently. How are you doing?
I'm delightful. I'm currently dog sitting 4 wonderful little creatures. So if they start barking, it's not me, it's them.
Okay. Keep that in mind. So a few weeks ago, Jason and I talked about Immortalis issue 3 because that was what the writer Sean Lewis had sent us. And issue 3 was what they started with, apparently. And then they went back and did 1 and 2.
Why?
Well, as I recall, the reasoning was that for pitching to publishers or whatever, issue 3 was the most interesting, or the most sort of representative of what the comic was supposed to be, because issue 1 is mostly flashback, and issue 2 was, I don't remember what, but so they started with issue 3. I don't know. It seems to me if they thought that issue 3 was the best one to pitch, maybe they should have rejiggered the story so that there was more of that in issue 1.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. If issue 3, if the story doesn't get good or marketable till issue 3, then there's something wrong with the story.
Right. Yeah, you need to make that issue 1 somehow.
And they're not wrong in that issue 1 is, well, we'll talk about it.
Right.
It is a dense mythology. There's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
And the story really doesn't start in earnest until issue 2, I would say.
Yeah.
It's almost like a 0 issue. Issue 1 is almost like a 0 issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you read issue 1 and then you read issue 2, there is nothing in issue 2 that continues issue 1. You could have started with issue 2.
Yeah, there's very little connection between them. I mean, the whole thing about Tam Montefiore, whose flashback story is told in issue 1, I don't think she's even mentioned in issue 2, not by name.
She doesn't appear in issue 2. She's not in it. No one from issue 1 is in issue 2.
Well, of course,
there's backstory on some of the characters.
Yeah, I mean, issue 1 starts with the same band of characters in the present that we saw in issue 3, but it's a different artist, and it's hard to recognize that because each issue has a different artist.
Yeah. Each of the artists is decent on their own, but their styles do not work in Congress together.
No, and there was a character let's see, which character was it in particular? This Oberhasli guy, that he and the woman are kind of, I think that they're sort of supernatural beings, and they are the ones who announce in issue 1 that Tam needs to be put in stasis for 200 years. But so I got to issue 2 and I said, who's this guy? And I looked at, oh, okay, that's Oberhasli, but he doesn't look anything like he looked at issue 1. He's got a completely different body type. So yeah, they're having a problem with the consistency from one artist to the next.
And that first issue, so it opens with, let me talk about how the book opens. It opens up with 6 or 7 characters arriving in Hades to go do a thing. Now, there's a great group scene of 6 characters, but then there's a 7th character standing off to the side that wasn't part of that group scene. So little things like that make the story hard to follow, and that artist, while he was good in one-on-one panels, his storytelling was a little bit distant. It was kind of hard to follow.
Miguel Galindo.
Well, good on you for keeping track of all these artists.
I had to write them down.
Here's the other thing that I had an easy fix when this is collected in a trade. The very first panel of issue 1 has a caption box that says 2020. And it says, okay, this is when this is taking place. The next scene goes to, I think, 1810, and this is called like a location tag. It has a caption that says 1810 in a completely different font. That's easy to miss. And then there are no more captions telling you the year.
Well, yeah, and there's a point where then so the guy is told you will have a child, and his child is Tam, and then next page no captions, and suddenly Tam is an adult. And if you didn't know what was going on, you would think that this is simultaneously with the previous scene, but it's not.
Yeah, I got that it wasn't, because it sets it up like, you will have a daughter. What?
Yeah, but you kind of have to be on the ball there, I think.
You need to make it really... See, this is where people watch films and try to apply film techniques to comics. They're not the same, and you have to hold people's hands a little bit. Film has music. There's all these different things that you do to signify a change of time and season. In comics, you really need to hold people's hands and be like, it's 20 years later. Plus, they already set that up in the very first panel. The very first thing we see in this book is a time caption.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all of these issues could really benefit from that. Like, when and where are we? The other, where is the father? He's dealing with people that are speaking Persian, but that could really be a number of different places.
Yeah, it says he's in the military in 1810, but yeah, it's not clear where he is. Yeah, perhaps Persia. You got guys with turbans on. There were a number of places where I was just not oriented enough. In issue 2, let's see, issue 2 is drawn by Ramad Wisnu, and you got a scene where, what's that woman's name? Charmaine. I kept thinking of Chow Mein. I don't know about that name. But Charmaine says,
"Be cool.
You go with him and you meet your next ally." And that's all we get is an explanation for where they're going and what they're doing. And they get there and you're kind of like, okay, well, there's this naked girl and there's blood coming out of her in troughs and what's going on? And it's finally in the next issue in just a one-off word balloon, it mentions there were vampires. Like, oh, okay, but who is this girl and exactly what are you going to do with her? Apparently they're going to swap her for Tam, but it's never actually stated clearly.
I didn't know that until you just said that.
I mean, at the very, very, very end of issue 3, somebody says something about the fake Tam, and I assume that that's the naked girl. And we're going to, he says, at least with the fake deicide, they'll never know we were here. But you have to really be on the ball to figure out what he means.
Well, that's also a joke because they sort of made a bunch of wreckage in
that's
the temple.
True. Yeah, they broke the lid of the coffin and broke out the side of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that character has a wry sense of humor that sometimes works for me and sometimes do not. But humor is subjective. There is a lot of action in this book. I actually like the artist in issue 2 the best. I feel like that storytelling is really, really solid, and I think it would make a great first issue. But all of these things that we're talking about could easily be solved with just being consistent caption boxes. Because even in issue 1. You've got these caption boxes that are shaped like scrolls, like old-timey scrolls, like paper scrolls. And they disappear after page 5. And I don't know that we ever get them again. So I guess my advice they're there on page 11. But it's not beyond issue 1, the scrolls are gone. And I kind of think a little bit of consistency with just how the story is presented. Obviously, artists come and go, and there's nothing we can do to control artists. They are wild beasts that will not listen to rhyme or reason. But through the caption boxes, if you could tell us when and where we are, remind us when and where we are, remind us the year, stuff like that goes a long way. But I do like the lettering in issue 1. So this book is so inconsistent. I think the story is so dense and has so much mythology going on that the rotating artists, the rotating letterers, the rotating colorists become another barrier. So through the lettering, through the captions, you can orientate the readers and just give them an anchor point. Would be really, really helpful. As far as the overall story goes, I think it could just use a little bit of focus. I don't know what the villain is, and I've read 3 issues. I'm not sure what their conflict is. I know they're collecting all these people, and they're going to do something with heaven and hell.
Well, yeah, there's some. Let's see. Well, what the text that I got from their Kickstarter was that Tam is the one true deicide in the war between heaven and hell and the old gods of myth. So
what does that mean? I don't know what that means. I have no idea what they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, some conflict is coming. And yeah, in the flashback in issue 1, we find that it was expected in the 19th century, and then there was some kind of cosmic scheduling conflict, and it got pushed ahead 200 years. And so she's supposed to be put in stasis for 200 years, and they put her in a grave. But then apparently what I got out of it was that some forces were planning to just leave her in the grave, and they considered her to have been killed, and because that was what Zeus wanted done. So these guys in the present are going against Zeus, I guess, essentially, because they're reviving her, even though supposedly it's not super clear though.
You got more of it than I did. Okay, so
I read it like 5 times. So.
Okay, but you shouldn't have to. We're 60 pages into this, and we don't know what the conflict is.
Mm-hmm.
So scene by scene, I think each scene works fine. I think the storytelling and the writing is scene by scene work. When I try and piece it all together, I can't follow it at all.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going on. The other thing... well, I don't know. I know how hard it is to retain an artist, and I think when this is collected, I think breaking it up by chapter will help. Captions will help, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the conflict is. I don't know why we should care. I don't know what happens if they fail.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're getting
the scheduling thing was really funny though, when they were like, "Oh, sorry, we got the apocalypse wrong. We got the date way wrong. Can you just chill out 200 years?" I thought that was actually really funny.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine playing that up for comedy and like whipping out a smartphone and messing with your schedule and like, I've got something else going on that day, so can we push it back 200 years? Is that okay?
Can we talk about this Mr. Hyde character for a second? There is a gentleman who goes scuba diving to Atlantis, which has been flooded by Poseidon.
Yeah.
And they find a bottle inside, and these bottles had been used to create Lemurian warriors, 100 times stronger than the average man, right?
Mm-hmm.
It breaks underwater with the guy's in a scuba suit, and then he becomes this beast. He can turn into like a big like Wendigo-like beast. But then later he starts calling himself Mr. Hyde. Now, Mr. Hyde is a character from the 1800s who was like the alter ego of Dr. Jekyll. This guy is not Dr. Jekyll, is he? And did he get his powers from scuba diving?
No, I think they're just trying to draw an analogy to that because he like changes into this other like more monstrous character. But I don't think he's supposed to be the actual Dr. Jekyll.
Yeah, Hyde is not a species. It's like a dude with an address. Like you can go to his house.
I suppose it's like a superhero name.
Okay. He is Hyde. Okay. Some of the storytelling, the artists get better. I believe. I think number 2 is really good, although the lettering in there is not great. You can fix lettering before you do the graphic novel. You can fix a lot of this stuff.
You could fix the coloring. I don't know. The first issue, the Miguel Galindo, he pencils, inks, and colors. I thought his figure drawing was good. The colors are kind of drab, and it kind of seems like that was intentional, but I don't know. It's all just kind of brown and green, and I would have liked it maybe a little bit more contrast.
A little sharper, yeah. And there, for example, there is a panel where this character is being shot at by people hiding in the bush. And it's really not clear that they're firing a gun until like a couple panels later. So just a little couple of sound effects like pop, 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 pop.
Well, and I thought Galindo was not so good at showing motion.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a panel where a woman is throwing a staff to Tam, and it looked like the staff was just floating in the air rather than moving through it. Or earlier on in that scene where they're arriving in Hades, someone is surprised by a demon behind him, but he's standing upright and then he's lying on the ground, and it's not clear. I mean, you can kind of figure it out, but we don't see him fall or, it's just standing up, lying down. He could have I feel sleepy. I'm going to lie down on the ground here.
So the artist in the first issue, I think, excels at drawing women.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when he gets to draw Tamara and action poses and, her clothes being torn to bits, he excels.
Mm-hmm.
The regular storytelling is a little bit clunky.
Mm. So issue 2 also has kind of subdued coloring, but I think it's better. And there's more contrast, and like different scenes have different colors. Well, I guess the first one wasn't so bad either, but
I thought issue 2 was excellent, to be honest. I thought the flow was really good. The artist chooses really this Zeus attacking people. Although the line "Zeus was a jealous god"
shows up twice in like within one page, I think.
Yeah, you need to change like a vengeful god. Zeus is a very mercurial character. He's got a lot of characteristics. Let's dial into those. But I thought that whole sequence, that art was great.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like a Steve Dillon-esque flow to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really simple, but it's really consistent. I don't know. It has a really nice line work. I thought that was really good. But again, the story, I would like a little bit more meat on it. I would like to know what the stakes are, because I'm not steeped in theology, so a lot of this is washing right over me.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know what this battle between the gods is supposed to be or why it's happening. Yeah, I think we need more information on that maybe before we even know about Tam's situation. So she's supposed to be apparently the fix for a problem, but we're not clear what the problem is.
Right. I think that's the biggest thing. It is a dense mythology, and there's 3 issues of gathering the team, but to what end? Now that you've got the team, what are they going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a little bit more immediacy establishing what the stakes are, I think, would be helpful. But it's a very noble effort, you know. I think in fits and starts, it's coming together. It's just coming together at a languid pace, and some storytelling decisions to get there quicker would help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
And maybe, like, I think if I could do anything, I would take the bits from the first issue maybe and interstitch them later in the book. Mm-hmm. So we don't spend 22 pages of, like, setup before we get to a story that's still setting up.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've got that scene in the present in Hades, and then the rest of the issue is the flashback, but within the issue, we don't understand what the connection is. So, yeah, it would be better to kind of lay out the situation, and you could, you know, drip out slowly even the Tam background, because we don't need to know all of that up front.
No.
I think it's more meaningful to us if we understand the situation first.
Right, and this is the struggle between world building and storytelling. Right, like you don't want to read an almanac of everything going on. You want to see all of that in motion in a story. So the world building is clearly well thought out and established and built, but it's slowing down the enjoyment of a story that needs to pick up the pace 6 pages in. And by pick up the pace, I don't mean more punching. There's a lot of punching. There's a lot of action. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, why are they here? Why do we care? What is the buy-in from the audience? We should really be getting that before page 60. But if you like supernatural people smacking each other around, maybe that won't be a problem for you.
Yeah. And Tam is hot, especially in issue 1, the way she's drawn. So if you're up for that, yeah.
Yeah. That artist likes drawing that. So at this point, they've established they shouldn't have an ongoing artist. They've set this tone, this precedent of every chapter having a different sort of tone and flavor. At this point, they have to hire a different artist every time. I kind of feel they have to.
Maybe I'll draw an issue. It'll look like Spider Hag, my late lamented webcomic.
Yeah, I feel their frustration not being able to hold on to a stable art team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got to be frustrating because I imagine Sean realizes that there are a lot of inconsistencies in like how the characters look from issue to issue.
And again, like just a caption being like, "This is Bob," you know, "This is so," and like that would help.
Yeah, you could punch up add a little bit to the writing to kind of guide us through these art inconsistencies.
Yeah. And a timeline would really help because it's whiplash-inducing how much it moves around.
Yeah.
Also, a Lemurian warrior who's been around for 6,000 years, when he faces a foe and says, "Let's boogie," like I have to put the PDF down and walk around the room.
Well, he's trying to keep up with the times, I guess.
Is that a famous Lemurian saying?
Well, but he's been living in the present, so he didn't like come back after being dead for 5,000 years. He's been around the whole time. So,
no, you're playing devil's advocate. I'm saying if you have a character that's that old, there's certain dialogue things that only they could say. Right? If anyone in this time era could say "Let's boogie," it's not really special. Is there a Lemurian curse? Is there something unique that only that character could say? Right? Like Imperious Rex, only Namor can get away with saying that.
Yeah.
Right? Clobbering time. There's certain things because of where they come from. I did a deep dive on 1800 slang for Nocturnal Commissions, and I loaded up Bradford's dialogue with things that no one says today, just so he felt different than everybody else, and it wasn't just three monsters. So I guess my recommendation is break out your Lemurian thesaurus. Yes, there is a campy funniness to an ancient being saying "Let's boogie." And I guess humor is subjective. I would rather hear him using sort of an older dialect mixed with younger words to remind us that he's 6,000 years old, instead of him telling us repeatedly that he's 6,000 years old.
Yeah, I met Jesus. He was a nice guy. Yeah, I met Tennyson.
There was a great line where someone says, this character says she's going to heaven, and this other character, the vampire character, says, "Don't get any on you."
Mm-hmm.
That got a chuckle out of me. I think 1 out of every 4 gets me a good chuckle.
Okay.
The Let's Boogies, the eye roll could put me into a coma. But who knows? That might be someone else's favorite line.
Okay. So, listeners, if you would like us to critique your comics, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com. So,
where can people buy Immortalis?
Well, I imagine he's got another Kickstarter planned, so I think I would just keep an eye on Kickstarter. If I can find a new one, I'll link to it. But if not, maybe I'll link to the old one again. But it seems like they're funding each issue through Kickstarter.
Well, I can't wait to see who the next artist is.
Me? No. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Tim.
Check out the link to the Immortalis Kickstarter page in the show notes. Our theme is from bensound.com. You can help the Deconstructing Comics family of podcasts by joining us on Patreon at patreon.com/deconcomics, and go to deconstructingcomics.com to connect to us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, to shop on Amazon to support the show, and to find links to subscribe to the podcast. Till next week, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics.